Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the news. I am Sajo Brite. Coming up this afternoon is putting on the hijab more of a Ramadan ritual in Gambia. Our reporter Mati Sengor finds out. Our special guest on News Review today is, of course, Mohamed Sandeng, the son of the late Solo Sandeng, as Gambians honor the memory of his late father. But first, we'll take a look at the newspapers. The Standard newspaper is reporting that opposition demand investigation into street voters card. Kande appeals to bank offers to assist security forces with vehicles. AfriCell Gambia expands operations to Angola. Volunteer nurse gets 20 years for rape. Activism cannot change crime rates in the Gambia. This according to the police PRO Superintendent Lamin Jai. Let's take a look at some of these stories in detail. At least 3 opposition parties have demanded an independent investigation into the rampant discovery in the streets of designed blanked Gambian voters' cards last weekend. After 50 blank cards strikingly similar to Gambian voter cards were found by one Molamin Jikine at his Canifing Estate compound gate on Saturday. The cards bear the name and logo of the Independent Electoral Commission as the issuing authority, though they don't have any pictures, names, addresses, dates, or any other detail of a voter. The blank cards, though, have what looks like the signature of the IEC chairman, Aliu Momar Njai. Yesterday, the IEC issued a statement clarifying that the blank voters' cards were remainder of the old stock of the 2011 and 2016 voter registration exercises, which are presently being disposed of to provide space for the arrival of new stocks of voters' cards due in the Gambia in a few weeks for the December 4th presidential elections. Mama Kande appeals to banks offers to assist security forces in the country. The opposition Gambia Democratic Congress leader has pleaded with banks and philanthropists to assist the country's security forces with vehicles in order to execute their duties, as he described President Barrow as a failure. Speaking to supporters on Monday, Mama Kande urged the security top officials to act against the rising crime in the Gambia. Meanwhile, AfriCell expands operations to other parts of Africa, this time around Angola. Pan-African mobile company AfriCell Group continues to spread its wings in Africa with a new network license, this time in Southern Africa. The group's newest operation is in Angola, its 5th in Africa. In the past year, the company has also moved its headquarters to London, UK, reflecting its ever-growing strategic position as a major international investor in Africa, focused in the GSM sector. Meanwhile, volunteer nurse gets 20 years for rape in Brikama, Jeddah. Magistrate Peter Adoche of the Brikama court yesterday sentenced one Modu Toure, a former PIU officer and a volunteer nurse at the Brikama Health Center, to a mandatory jail term of 20 years. The trial magistrate also ordered that the convict also pay 50,000 Gambian dollars for compensation to the victim. Mr. Toure's conviction and sentencing came after the court found him guilty on a single count charge of raping an 18-year-old girl in Brikama, Jeddah. Activism cannot change crime rates in the Gambia, according to Superintendent Police PRO Lamin Jai. The spokesperson of the Gambia Police Force, Superintendent Lamin Jai, has lamented that instead of engaging young people into meaningful things like sports and gardening to reduce loitering, most Gambians have turned to activism and the blame game for the growing rise in crime in the country. PRO Njai said sometimes people misunderstand the role of the police. He was quoted as saying, for example, recently people blamed the police for releasing ex-convicts back to the communities, but little do they know that the police, are mandated only to arrest and prosecute criminals. National Human Rights Commission raises concern over spate of rape cases in the country. The National Human Rights Commission has issued a statement yesterday saying it's deeply concerned by the spate of rape and other forms of sexual and gender-based violence in the country. The Rights Commission said hardly a week passes by without the report of sexual violence against women in the newspaper or on social media. A few days ago, it was the alleged rape of a 9-year-old girl by a 40-year-old man in Lamen, West Coast region, and the alleged rape and gruesome murder of a grade 12 student in Busumbala. Our young girls and ladies are apparently not safe in their homes, schools, on the streets, and at the workplace, the National Human Rights Commission said in a statement. That's it for the Standard newspaper. Let's take a look at The Point. The Point newspaper is reporting that armed youths thieves habitually storm Mandinari Lower Basic School. National Human Rights Commission urges immediate end to sexual and gender-based violence. We've already covered that story. IEC calls for calm while assuring to issuing different voter cards to previously used. Let's take a look at this story. Armed youth and thieves are reported in the habit of storming the Mandinari Lower Basic School in the Kombo North District, threatening lives of students and teachers as well as stealing valuable materials. The point has been informed anonymously. Speaking to this medium on Monday, the source said some men often stormed the school daily with cutlasses and knives, forcibly adding they would continuously stay within the school campus to smoke cannabis and sometimes steal belongings of the school and of course that of the teachers. That's it for the newspapers. Let's go for a break and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Recently, wearing the hijab has become more of a Ramadan ritual rather than a way of a life. Some women wear the hijab only in Ramadan to add to their good deeds during the holy month. Others wear it because they think that without the hijab, their fasting will not be reckoned. Mati Senghor had an interview with some hijabis and she files in this report.
Men differ when it comes to wearing the hijab or covering their body. While you have some amongst the Muslim community who wear the hijab and cover up, you equally have others who do not. During the Ramadan, most who do not wear the hijab join their hijab-wearing counterparts in covering up with the belief that's the way for them to have their fast and other acts of worship reckoned. While some scholars state that is sinful, others state that we should encourage women to wear the hijab, for if they wear it in Ramadan, they are likely to wear it afterwards. We had an interview with some of our Muslim sisters to know why they wear the hijab and what the hijab symbolizes.
Hijab is compulsory, it's not a choice. For Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 59, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu qul li azwajika wa banatika wa nisa'il mu'minin yudinina alayhinna min jalabibihinna dhalika adana an yu'rafna fala yu'dhay wa kana Allahu ghafuran rahima. The interpretation means, O Prophet, tell your wives, daughters, and the believing women to draw their veils over their body. That will be better so as not to be annoyed, and Allah is forgiving and merciful.
Hijab lum symbolize comme hanga nit ñi légui dañ dé wax né comme hijab so hijabé ci bopa bi rek la wara em comme sa kawar bi rek nga ko wara cover waye hijab nekkul né comme ci kawar bi rek la stop parce que da nga wara cover sa yaram bi yépp suñ né hijab da nga wara sol lo xamantene dafa mut sa loxo bi ak sa kanam bi rek wara woné. Wow, basically so hijab lu mo symbolize moy sa morality bi ak tamit sa modesty bi ak sa privacy bi.
Basically, as I said, the hijab is compulsory. It's not you. Sisters should not wear the hijab because it's Ramadan. It's a lifetime thing. They should wear it with or without Ramadan, because for Allah commands it way before. When Allah was commanding women to wear hijab, it was not on the days of Ramadan. Allah knows that women will be oppressed if they don't wear hijab, because Allah loves us. That's why Allah commanded women to wear hijab.
Have you ever faced any discrimination? Is a question I asked the sisters.
Yes, basically, I did first a lot of discrimination, especially when I started journalism in the beginning. You know, people would discriminate me. Sometimes when I go to certain events, people would tell me that, you know, with your dress code, it's not. You choose the wrong field as a journalist. A journalist is somebody that should expose herself fully. Hence, you choose to talk to people. People should see your face. But I never mind. And then when it comes to academically, also, I was also discriminated because people would think that I should not. Why should I cover up? And then there was even a scenario where I supposed to go for a tour with fellow journalists, and then on the day of the orientation, the lady was like, you know, guests will be many there, so you cannot wear your niqab, you know. So I feel so sad. I was crying. You know, and then I went back to our office that they have to switch me with another reporter. So because of my niqab, and then, but nonetheless, that has never made me give up, because I know the reason why I am doing this. I am doing this because my Lord command me to do so. So I'm not doing it for worldly pleasure. So that is why I always encourage sisters that the hijab is a commandment and this life is very short. That they should wear it no matter what they feel.
waaw kay mus naa face a form of discrimination am na benn bés ma doon si school bi dama dugga moto so bu ma duggee rek immediately ma dugg xanga man dam dee nikaab so bu ma duggee si moto bi rek ñu ne ma ne jaxamba yow ameeloo bum sa baag bi something like that so dama rusoon naa de te bëggoon naa jooy sax si biir moto bi di ñu ma doon ree sax dañ ma doon ree jigéen ñu fa nekk sa gars yi weewuñ hijab comme proper hijab defuñ ko dañ doon wax ne jar naa laajte de something like that ñu ma doon ree dama rusoon si moto bi bu baax sax.
Well, yeah, severally, but I just believe that this is not a rebellious act. This is mandatory, and there's nothing to choose actually. It is a commandment, so I know if you know the verses of the Quran, you will believe that we don't have any wishes to fulfill ourselves. Even though we have things to do, we have to abide by the laws of the Quran, and this is obligatory upon us. It guards your chastity and modesty, so it is something we need to practice. You don't have to pick and choose.
Khadija Njai gave a piece of advice to our sisters.
Basically, I would want to advise myself and the women, the sisters, the mothers that are wearing the hijab to keep it going. It's not an easy task. It's hard every single day, leaving your home or leaving where you are, dressing fully covered, properly covered, leaving your home and living in a society whereby you could be called off by anybody, you could be molested by anybody. So it's something that is not an easy thing. So I'm going to advise myself and those wearing the hijab to keep it going, to keep pushing. It's not an easy thing, but always remember that whatever you're doing for the sake of Allah, there's a great reward for it. Every single drop of sweat that you have in your body, you are being rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't be demotivated. Keep it going, keep pushing, and motivate yourself every single day that this hijab that I'm wearing is a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm never going to take it off till I meet my Lord.
Hijab is obligatory in Islamic law. This implies that it is obligatory for a Muslim woman to wear hijab during the blessed month and at other times. Ramadan is the month when Muslims are expected to increase their tawbah, repentance, turn over a new leaf, as well as making it the starting point for doing righteous deeds that will guide them to Almighty Allah and ultimately gain His pleasure. For the Fatu Network News Review, I am Mati Senghor.
Welcome back. And yeah, for those of you that are commenting out there about this hijabi report, yeah, I know I'm part of them, but I'll walk in it. Thank you very much for joining us once again. And now I introduce our special guest on News Review today, Mohamed Solo Sandeng. Mohamed, welcome to the Fatu Network.
Thank you.
April 14 today, a very difficult day, I assume, and a very difficult, past 5 years. How do you reflect on this day?
Thank you. Well, not a difficult day at all, not anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, because we have forged ahead and we're trying to do that, and so I don't want to call it a difficult day. So yeah, but April 14th today, we remember as Gambians, we remember the day when, the day of the dawn, of a new Gambia, the day of an end that started an end to that brutal dictatorship that I was born in, on a lot of others of my age mates. But for a family, it is also a day in remembrance of our father, a day that we lost him, and for eternity. It gives mixed feelings, really, but also, it's for the fact that this year's commemoration falls under Ramadan. It brings us Ramadan memories of our dad because he used to be a very jovial person and a religious guy for that matter. And so really gives me feelings and remembrances of our Ramadan moments, which used to be very, very nice.
And how do you remember your father? What was he like as you know, just as a father besides politics?
Yes, that's the most interesting question I like to answer. My dad, apart from politics, was a very jovial person, I said, and he was supportive, a very supportive father, and he was so open-minded. He was very open-minded, and so for that reason, he was the best father, and I like to remember him for, I mean, he's he's accommodating nature, because my dad was somebody that was very accommodating. It doesn't matter who you were to him. I mean, he was open-minded, objective. So for that reason, he was an accommodating person.
You know, a lot of people will say for any serious government, you know, people would have been out today celebrating this guy for everything that he has done for his country. It is not the case today. How do you feel about that? Because we've seen people post on social, but as a country, do you think they could have done more to honor his legacy?
Well, did you say a government? For any serious government?
For any serious country.
Yeah, well, I think we're a serious
we can get to the government part too.
Well, let's do that. When we get there, I'll give you an answer.
For any serious government, what do you think? Especially for him, because he fought so much as part of what ushered in the coalition and what brought in His Excellency President Adama Barrow. In fact, some people are saying if we were to go by the way it was supposed to go by, he should have issued a statement today. So what do you think?
Well, I think that is left to Adama Barrow and what he wants to do about that. But as far as I'm concerned, this year's commemoration did not have the crowd it used to have the past 2 years, and that is owed to the coronavirus pandemic, because otherwise we would go on with our commemoration march past from Westfield, simulating what him and his colleagues did in 2016. And so it's basically, it's just entirely for the reason of the pandemic and the restrictive measures that are in place, and also for the considerate thoughts of the organizers of that event, the march past, and also other events that take place in the past about this commemoration. But nonetheless, the Solo Sending Foundation has really going on to commemorate this day in the new usual style, that is online, and we were able to conduct a Zoom event, which really draws a cross section of Gambian civil society and stakeholders in the transitional justice process, because for us that is what we're interested in. We're interested in seeing the success of the transitional justice process in the country. So we managed this morning to have a Zoom conference that brought together members of the TRRC, that of our foundation, the Solo Sending Foundation, and a cross-section of civil society and other human rights defending organizations in and outside of the country, such as the Human Rights Watch, Africa Legal Aid, and you name them. So we had a discussion that was centered around the expectations of the TRRC, of the victims of the TRRC recommendations. So we had a very fruitful discussion, and I think it has served its purpose really, because the Solo Sending Foundation is interested in furthering the interests of the victims and the general TJ thing. Process.
Yep. So do you have any hope, or are you hopeful about the TRRC recommendations after when they will be done and submitted to government? Do you have the hope that it will be implemented? We've seen other commissions here, and it's a totally different thing. What do you think about this one?
Well, I think, personally, I just think it depends on us as a country, as stakeholders in the transitional justice process, as citizens, to further what we want, because this whole thing is about what we want, okay, not what another person wants. It's about what we want as a people, I mean, the people that are concerned. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the success and the applicability of TRRC recommendations depends on us as civil society and also as victims who are concerned, and not ruling out the importance of government and political will in it. But we have seen what had happened in the past, just like you said, and so for that doesn't rule out the fact, and it doesn't give us any reason not to be optimistic that the government will do the right thing, because that is what they are supposed to do. So I think the government will do the right thing as far as I'm concerned. But also, if they happen not to do the right thing, or they would do things that they think is right, it depends on us, and it's imperative on us to further, and ask for what we want, because this whole thing concerns us.
You know, what would justice mean for your father if he's supposed to be delivered? What would it mean? Would it mean that for Jammeh to be brought back to face the full force of the law? What would it mean to you?
I think that's one thing, just one thing in it. Well, justice is very relative. When you talk about the idea of justice, it's too relative. You know, for some people it is obviously what you said, seeing Jammeh tried, and I think for every one of us it is, because he bears the greatest of responsibility. So I think that is one. And prosecutions, obviously we would have to see people get prosecuted. But if you ask me, to a certain degree, I think justice means a lot more than that. Justice means repairing the broken system that we have in Gambia. I mean, having to hold people accountable, not just people like Jammeh and his accomplices, but people that really, did not fulfill their responsibilities, or did not carry out their responsibility, or neglected their responsibilities, which all, resulted concertedly to what we have today. So for other people, it might be money, it might be reparation, and reparation can also be more than money, So it is very relative. But one thing that is sure is having Jammeh tried, even if it takes 10, 24 years.
Even if it takes the longest. And now let's talk about someone who's worked under Jammeh and now working under this government. And I just have to ask you this because, Kukoduna Mokoham, you know what I mean? We've seen the Minister of Defense in recent weeks come out on a show to say that, Gambians need to suck it up and just move on. And I just want to make sure that this is the last time I even talk about this on a platform or anything of that sort. When you heard those comments, what was your reaction?
Well, I think those were very irresponsible comments, very, very irresponsible, coming from a state minister. But that also begs the question, and it calls into question who really is a state minister in this case. What character do we seek of state ministers in this case, especially in this government? So, but I think that is irresponsible, and it ought not to come from anybody, even one that doesn't hold any sort of position of authority in this country. Is not supposed to say that. Even somebody shouldn't talk like that, because come law, who knows it feels it, and if it's that way, then I think the best thing one could do about somebody's pain is to sympathize or shut up, But it is, in this case, it is a perpetrator telling you to shut up his acts, okay? Because that guy was an enabler of Jammeh, okay? He served in different positions, okay? So for me, it's just somebody telling me to let, the spilled milk, dry off and get sucked up by, by the soil, because he's poured it, okay? So, excuse me. So for me, I don't really think that is important. What is important to me and people like me is our pursuit of justice. But one thing, I like to say is that it is just unfortunate that it has to come from a state minister. So it kind of signals the energy that is in the cabinet, okay? Because we've had in the past how other cabinet ministers really, think about the justice system, or we have seen how they really are carrying out these things. The cabinet, the president coming down, we've seen how they've done with various commissions that are a part of the transitional justice process. So really, it is it just sends a shockwave, and it signals if the executive, the government is not thinking in the same line, because really somebody like that talking might think he's talking authoritatively, and when that happens, you let out what the energy around you in your inner circle. So I think it must be that, okay, and whatever it is, we already have got a hint or a clue of what the government is already thinking or what they might be thinking. But I think, however, that statement is irresponsible as it is, and as it is, I think it is irresponsible, and it is very, very it is very, very bad, coming from a state minister and directing it to people that have their pain and they want to solve it. So for that reason, I think that state minister, in fact, doesn't deserve the position he's given, and that is clear. And whoever continues to retain him is doing that in support of inaptitude and what you call incompassionate.
So, and then we have, obviously your father went into this fight, with a whole lot of other people, but unfortunately he didn't make it out, but still Gambians love him and respect him for the sacrifice he's done for this country. And one of those people who went into this fight with him was a National Assembly member, Falmata Jawara. And even Jawara had stood on a platform and said something to the effect of allowing Jammeh to come back and then be placed somewhere around Pipeline. What did you make of that statement, and what is your relation to Fatmata as it stands now?
We have a very good personal relation from time immemorial, like as in Fatmata has been a sister to me, and that is what she will remain, okay? But, as part of those comments, I think they are too political, and I also think that, at some point, I don't want to be at her defense, okay? And I will not, in fact. I think that is irresponsible of her, and she did not know what she was talking about, okay? Because it makes no sense for Fatimata to talk like that. And I think that's irresponsible, very, very irresponsible of her. I don't know what she was thinking, but that is irresponsible. Because if it is about sending Jammeh back here, did she ask herself what is going to happen to her, or those that did the acts that were done to her? She's asking Jammeh to come back so that those people can rejoice, and probably those acts be repeated on her again. So for me, I think that is irresponsible, and she didn't know what she was saying, as far as I am concerned.
And looking at the political climate and the political situation of the Gambia right now, what would have Solo think of all these things that are happening in this country right now?
I think that would be, I don't know how you would call that, for me to assume how somebody would think. But how I think is what is important, right? So how I think about the whole political situation right now, I don't like to talk to politicians no more in this country. What I like to do is talk to the people that possess the power. That is you and me and the constituents out there. So I just like to use this proverb, this Mandinka proverb that says, Keba dibikono lula ni mol meje ke fanjel. As in, if you are standing in the dark, if anybody doesn't see you, and it is incumbent on yourself to see yourself, okay? Right. So what that means is that for the Gambian people, for us, because when my dad went out there and all that he was doing, he never did it for himself, okay? Because he had a very relatively small family compared to the whole Gambian population, and his business is very, very small in this whole Gambian setup. But the reason why he took it on himself, to do what he did in sort of freedom, liberty for this country, I think the Gambian people should understand and should know what really they want. That is the first step. If we know what we want, then we will go for what is right. And how do we do that is to really have a reflection on where we came from, what we were wanting when we were coming from, where we came from, and where we are now, and where do we want to be in the near future. So for me, that's the kind of evaluation I put to it.
Yeah, and now we have the Solo Sanding Foundation. What can you tell us about this foundation?
The Solo Sanding Foundation has been up from 2017, and we have been working in our ways to further the legacy and values, principles of Mr. Sanding, which cuts across justice. Because if you know my father, he was somebody that was into a series of things. He was a humanitarian and at the same time a politician, like everybody knows him. And beyond that, he was a voluntary person. I mean, he lived a life of volunteerism. So all of that is really a part of the goals of the Solo Sanding Foundation. But importantly, it is in our aims and objectives and as a point of intervention for us to really further and strengthen the transitional justice process in this country, and also seek for the interest of victims. Yeah. Okay, and we cannot do that without affecting laws and really affecting how the whole setup is worked out. So for us, that is what we are about. We are in there, in pursuit of the realization of the victim's interest and the interest of the transitional justice process as it is. So that is what we do. We consult with stakeholders to make sure that we effect meaningful change.
That's right. And before I let you go, I've seen a lot of people today took to social media, to share videos in honor of your father. What do you have to say to them before we end the show?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to each and everyone that did the videos, the short videos. I'm a part of that. Yeah, so we thought it is important to just put, give people the opportunity to send in videos to our Solo Sanding page and all just make videos and tag Solo Sanding, because we think, Solo Sanding is a Gambian icon. So every Gambian should be able to relate to whatever is associated to Solo Sanding. So for us, that's just one manifestation of that, putting it out there. So every Gambian, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what political lining you have, you were given the opportunity and you are still given the opportunity to say something about Solo Sanding, how you feel, and what you think his sacrifices meant to you. Because, evidently, his sacrifices affected every Gambian life, okay? So it depends what people think about it. So it was basically about that, to give people the floor to really celebrate with us, the family, and the organization. Yes. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for coming through to the FAT Network. I know I've held you here for a very long time. I had him sitting here. He almost asked me for water to drink. But that's okay. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm putting it out there. But thank you very much for coming through. We really appreciate it. Our thoughts are with you, the family, and everyone. And we're praying for your father continuously. Thank you very much. That will be it for a news review today. Do join us tomorrow if you can. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day.